Before we start our conversation, I have the tradition of officially reading out the bio so that I don't butcher anything. So my guest today, Jenna Kutcher, is the host of the #1 marketing podcast, the Gold Digger podcast. I really love the name, Gold Digger, without a D, by the way. And New York Times bestselling author of How Are You Really? Jenna Kutcher is an entrepreneur, an educator, a mom of 2, and someone who wants to help people wake up to the life they are living and walk in their truth every day. Welcome, Jenna, once again.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Let's dive in.
You know what made me so excited? As I was reading your bio for the first time before everything, I suddenly realized that if I replaced the name of the podcast and the name of the book, it could be
we have the
about
same
me.
bio. Isn't that amazing? I love it. It's like kindred spirits together.
Of course, my book is not published yet, so I can't say I'm a best-selling author, but I do really hope that I will become. And my podcast is not about marketing, but I do have marketing background. So as I said, I was like, that sounds very, very familiar.
I love it. I love it.
So what we're going to talk about is actually it's going to be about your book in broader terms, although the topic of the conversation was formulated a little differently. But really, we are going to talk about the conversations that you should not avoid in your life, right?
Yes.
So I want to talk about one conversation I had this morning. I guess it's just the universe wanted me to go on this path. We were walking with my daughter to school, and somehow we ended up talking about the role of women in contemporary society.
Yeah.
And it's a strange conversation because I live in Europe. I live in Northern Europe and European Union countries. So you would imagine it's a very liberal country. But of course, I was born in Soviet Union, which surprisingly, when it comes to women's role in the society, was actually fairly forward. But I have also lived for 16 years in Asia and traveled a lot in Asia. And this morning, I saw an article by a former university friend of mine who essentially was very happy about one prominent Estonian woman, like newscaster or a prominent Estonian woman with a career, who was happy that she was with the children. And she said while she thought herself very successful until she had children, she realized that her true happiness is in having children. And that friend of mine, she was so happy. She said, finally, I want to see more women realize that. And while I know she wants women to have children, I also thought, how is this conversation even possible in the 21st century? That somebody from a country which is considered to be developed and liberal, and we are very, very conscious about human rights and women's rights, how is it even possible that a public figure can express an opinion that women should be happy having children and staying at home and should abandon their careers? So sorry that I started like this.
No.
But I want to ask you how because I know you have a career, you have children.
Yeah.
How do you balance these things?
Yeah. Oh, I love this. I mean, talk about a light conversation on your way to school, right? Tackling the world's problems just on your stroll. I love it. It's really fascinating because I am someone who loves being a mom. And there is actually a chapter in my book where for a very long time, I didn't think I wanted to become a mom. And I wasn't sure that was like a decision that I wanted to make. And I feel like there were many years where I avoided wanting to become a mom and wanted to really focus on my career. And if you find me today, it's like I was literally nursing the baby, getting her down for her nap before our conversation. And it's this really interesting juggle. And I often struggle with the word balance because even if you study the origin of the word balance, balance is meant to be like a moment in time. It's not meant to be this state that is maintained. And so if you think about it, even if you picture like the scale tipping, or right here, I have like an hourglass. Like when we think about this idea of balance, it's like one grain of sand can tip you out of balance. And I think when we think of large scale roles that we play, like motherhood and career, it's really about figuring out what is the right blend of those things for each season of your life as you move through it. And for me, there are definitely seasons where my career has to be the focus, but that doesn't mean I abandon that other position. And then there are seasons where I am like all in, hands in the Play-Doh, all in with my children, and my career takes a back seat. And so I think it's really up to us, especially as women and ambitious women, to become so dialed in with ourselves and our ambitions and our roles to understand, where do I need to put my focus right now? And is there an opportunity to blend all of the different roles that I play in my life?
Mhm. So I really love how you actually pointed out the essence of the concept balance, because
Yeah.
I often feel that our contemporary society is a little bit superficial in a lot of things, and we don't look at the essence. We want like some kind of simple explanations rather than looking deeper into the essence of the thing. So I agree that balance maybe is the wrong word, because well, it's evening and my kids are back from school, but I'm here in the office.
Yeah.
But on Friday, I'm going to drop everything and go on school holidays with them. And I
Yes.
actually canceled quite a lot of things, saying that kids are taking priority right now. But what I want to ask you, so you said a wonderful thing. You said you were also, you had a period in your life where you thought you wouldn't want to be a mother, and now you have small children. I know this is that period of time that takes much more of your physical energy and emotional energy. And
We're in the
time.
weeds, let's be honest.
Yes. And
Oh.
I relate to that because I also love my children very much, and they often take priority over a lot of things. So how does a woman, and I'm talking right now more about women, but I guess a question in a different setting would be relatable to men as well. How does a woman actually choose to do what is important to her, ignoring what the society expects? Because I do not know how it's in the US. Maybe it's not fashionable to say that a woman should have children and stay at home, but a lot of the people feel this way, and there is pressure that, if you are a successful woman and you don't have children, then you are a failure in one area of your life at least.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So my husband, Drew, we met back when we were in college. So we were 18 years old. And he is actually a stay-at-home dad. And so it is a lot easier for me to be super ambitious because I have that a lot of people don't have in their lives. And so I just want to acknowledge that piece, because it is a massive privilege to have a partner who says, you run and I'm here and I've got this. And in my book, I actually tell a story about how when my husband first expressed this desire to be a stay-at-home dad, I was like really surprised. Like, this man hadn't even held a baby until he came home with me for Christmas one year, and there was baby cousins everywhere. And so the fact that that was his desire was something that really took me by surprise. And once we decided we had children, it actually was kind of a struggle for us. We had two losses that were back to back, 2 years apart. And so it took us 3 years to be able to have our child. And I tell this story in my book about how my husband had this desire to become a stay-at-home dad. And I felt like this failure because I was the thing that wasn't able to fulfill that dream. Like, he was supporting my career, supporting my ambitions, and I couldn't do the one thing, carry a child to help support what he deeply desired. And that was a really big season for us. I think a lot of times people find themselves in these waiting seasons, and they wait because they're waiting for the career or the baby or the relationship or the job, whatever that is. And a lot of times as humans, it's like we're prone to like grovel and just wait until that thing finally happens. And then we will suddenly become who we're meant to become. And when I look back at our journey to become parents, I really see these invitations for us to become the type of people that allowed us to be the type of parents that we wanted to become. And I remember my grandparents came over to our house one day, and it was in that season of waiting where we were really hopeful to start our family. And my husband expressed this ambition of becoming the stay-at-home dad. And I remember my grandpa like looked at him and was like, wait, what? You're going to do what? Like, how does that even work? And I was raised in a very, very traditional setting. My dad worked at a paper mill. My grandpa worked with the electrical company. My grandma had raised 5 boys on her own. And so, it was this really unique, like, flip of the script that felt really like we were countercultural in that way.
Mhm.
And the thing that I've realized about dreams is it's no one else's job to understand your dream. It's not up to you to explain it to anyone else that doesn't want to get it. And my grandparents are incredibly supportive of us now, but they just couldn't understand our vision. And I think that it's really important as we move through life, whether it's with different ambitions or career or family, that you have a vision that makes sense to you and that honors like what you are called to do, and that you feel that you are in alignment even without anyone else's approval. And so it's been this really interesting journey for us because I am the breadwinner and I am the career person, but I couldn't do what I do without him doing what he does. And so it's like this team that comes, that allows us to be incredible parents, but also allows me to chase those ambitions that I have.
Well, my former husband wasn't a stay-at-home dad, and I would say that if you want to choose something, you'll find the way. So I don't think that I was chained to the home. My kids are older now, of course, but I don't think I was chained to the house either when my children were born. What I want to ask is maybe a little unfair question, but it is a free-flowing conversation as it is. As I said, I have lived in Asia for 16 years, and I've seen a lot of the decisions being made out of peer pressure, be it career, where child's maybe passion that is not considered to be a reasonable career, especially in less developed countries. It might be a valid concern because especially we in Europe, we can afford to do whatever we like. We have social securities and whatnot, and it's a fairly rich environment. But when you live in a slightly poorer country, let's say, that doesn't have a lot of social support, I understand why parents may be very pushy to make people choose something more reasonable, but that goes way beyond just career. Young people are often pushed into marrying certain kind of people, into living certain kind of ways, doing certain kind of things. So the question that I want to ask is, why are people reluctant to actually follow their heart and tend to listen to peer pressure? Is it because we are afraid to upset people, or is it because we are afraid that we'll be left without support if we do the way we choose? Do you have an answer to that?
Yeah. It's really interesting. I think that a lot of times we slowly lose our ability to check in with ourselves, and we start to let the noise of the world or the people surrounding us or our peer group or our parents start to kind of drown out that inner knowing. And it's this really slow progression that I think happens as we age, when we start to seek out approval or when we start to pay attention to what the world says is important. And I think it's really easy. And I found different places in my career where I've gotten to this point of success and it doesn't feel like I thought it would, right? Like I achieve this goal and I find myself in this moment that I had imagined a million times, and yet it feels nothing like that. I remember the day that I hit 6 figures as an entrepreneur. It felt like this elusive goal. Like, I am raised in small town Minnesota. Neither of my parents ever made a 6-figure salary. And I remember the day that I hit 6 figures, I was standing in the shower. I was using the same Herbal Essence shampoo I had used the day before. And I remember checking in on myself and thinking, I thought this would feel different. Like, I thought that the angels would sing. I thought that there would be gold balloons celebrating me. I thought I'd have fancier shampoo. And I think a part of me thought that fancier shampoo would make me happier. And when I actually checked in on myself, I had this moment of like, this doesn't feel like I thought it would. And I think a lot of us feel that discontentment in our lives in many different areas. And instead of actually pausing to ask ourselves, like, am I going after the things? What we usually do, because we're achievers, because we're people pleasers, is we just push the goal a little further. Like, maybe 6 figures wasn't enough. Maybe I need more. Maybe I just need to work harder. Maybe I just need to do more to get that feeling that I'm craving. And I think that when I look back at my career over the last decade, one of the things that I'm so proud of myself for is in that moment in the shower, as I'm lathering my shampoo, instead of saying, maybe I just need to be happier, I remember saying, maybe more isn't better. And to answer your question of like, how do we get so untethered to our soul? How do we like disconnect from our intuition? I think it happens bit by bit. It's like chipping away, like society is chipping away. Our parents' expectations are chipping away. The things that people say are important are chipping away. And so much of that disconnects us from our inner knowing and our deeper desires and our calling and our legacies. And I remember that the day that I hit 6 figures, when I checked in on myself, when I was really honest, if I answered, how was I really in that moment? I was exhausted. I was burnt out. I was depleted. And the day after I hit that goal, I remember my husband came home from his job. He was stocking shelves in a grocery store with wine. And I said, babe, I want to do something. I said, 6 figures isn't it. Like, I was happier when I made less. Like, can we go back to that? Like, I don't care if I eat ramen noodles, like cardboard noodles with sodium packets. Like, I will do that if it means that I can get my life back. And for me, it's been a lot of these moments in my life where I have to remind myself that like time is my currency. Like, I can always go out and earn more money, but like I cannot get back my time. And so the times in my life where I flip the script and say, I don't care what the world says is important. I don't care if there's another zero in my bank account. Like, time is my currency and I want to live a full life. So I've got to spend my time right. That's when I come home to myself. And that's when I feel like I am the most fulfilled version of myself, but also I'm fulfilling the calling that has been given just to me.
So I believe that we come to the point where I should ask, so what's that one question or that one conversation you shouldn't avoid? And of course, you mentioned it in your previous answer, but can we go a little bit deeper about that question about how are you really? The first time when I saw it, I kind of imagined it more in a social context, but I think it's more an introspective question, right?
Yeah. You know, it's so funny, Christina, because I know you're in the book world right now. And so I wrote my book, and for a lot of people that aren't in the book world, you go to like finish the book and sometimes you don't even have the title yet. Right. And I had written this book over 2 years through COVID in silence, I did it all in my own way. And I remember we were trying to land on a title and I kept describing it to people. And I was like, it's that difference in conversation when you go from like, how are you? Good, fine, busy, kids, to like, how are you really? And it's not even just the question itself, but it's like feeling like you are safe to answer it honestly. That changes everything. And I kept describing the book like that. And finally, someone who's so much smarter than I am said, is that the book? And I was like, wait, really? Is that the book? Really? And so this idea of like living your truth one answer at a time means like you have to come back home and answer that question. And I tell all these different stories about how in my life, like I love yoga and I used to hate Shavasana at the end of the yoga practice where you have to lay on the floor. And there was this season in my life where like I couldn't be still with myself because I knew that in being still, in quieting my mind, in stopping my thumbs from scrolling, that if I were really honest with myself, if I answered the question, like, how am I? Like, how am I really? The answer was that I wasn't living into what I knew to be true for me. Like, I wasn't answering my calling. I was doing other things. And so what I think is really interesting is that so many of us move through life avoiding checking in with ourselves because we know that if the answer is that I'm not okay, or I'm not good, or I'm not doing the things that I say are most important to me, then we have to do something about it. But it's in the doing something about it that we really come alive. And so how are you really? Absolutely. Bring it into your conversations with your friends. Like, get past all the fluffy stuff, dive deep with them. But also, what does that look like when you reflect with yourself, when you check in with yourself? Like, who are you when you are all alone? And I think we're almost living in this world where so many of us are working so hard. And when we wake up at 2 a.m, with the house quiet, with our minds racing, and we feel this feeling of like, is this really it? Like, is this what I'm working so hard for? Like, is this what my life is? It is this invitation for us to get super honest so that we can figure out where we are and start moving to where we want to go. It's like, Christina, if I think about how far away in the world you and I are right now, even though we're connecting on Zoom, if I wasn't honest about starting in Duluth, Minnesota, I could not get the right directions to get to where you are, right? And so many people are out there seeking these paths and these systems and these strategies and these templates to get to where they want to go, but they're not actually being honest about where their starting coordinate is on their life map. And so this idea of how am I really is giving you that starting point so that you can build from that. You can't get to where you want to go using someone else's roadmap if you're not honest about where you're starting. And so I think that's a massive problem, especially for women, when we figure out that, like, I'm not satisfied and I don't know if the problem is what I'm doing or if the problem is me. And spoiler alert, you are not the problem. The problem is that you're setting the wrong goals or you're setting out to achieve them in the wrong ways.
You know, today I caught myself doing a very funny thing. I had to register a farm because I bought some sheep, and because I was struggling with the internet, it took me a little longer than I wanted. And as I got up, I told my parents, I said, okay, I need to go and do some job that actually pays the bills. And, you know, it was a funny phrase, but I realized that it's such a privilege to be able to do things that you care about. In my case, it's because we had done a lot of pre-work, so I can afford taking time off work and do other things. In your case, you're lucky to have your husband to, you know, to keep your fort, as they say, although they say it's not a very good saying, but I don't know a better one for now. So in a way, it does look like we're privileged. Of course, probably we have worked in that direction. But where does a person find courage when that rat race is all they've ever known, and whatever they're doing is all they have?
Yeah.
And it is sometimes so scary because you have responsibilities for maybe other people. Where do you find courage to actually be honest with yourself and admit that maybe the life that you're living is not exactly what you were dreaming about?
Yeah. You know, it's so interesting because I think that if you look at stats right now, like the Great Resignation is women are leaving the workforce in droves. And I think it's fascinating. And I think it's also liberating in some contexts because a lot of women are saying, like, this doesn't work, especially for women who do desire to have both career and children. And what's interesting to me is that we are so quick to abandon what's gotten us to this point, when instead, if we were really being wise, we would leverage what we've got going and use it as a jumping off point for where we want to go. And one of the tools that I've done in my life, because I have pivoted so many different times, Christina, like I started as a wedding photographer. I had a watercolor print shop. I ran a wedding blog. I did senior portraits. I had a podcast. I mean, I've moved and wiggled through my career in so many different ways, but I've always leverage what's working for me while using that as the jumping point for where I want to go. I never abandon something just because it's no longer aligned. I say, how can I use this piece to get me to where I want to go? I have this chapter in the book about what is your enough point. And it kind of goes back to that similar vein of hitting six figures and realizing, okay, that was not the goal. What is the goal? And I think that for a lot of people, the first priority has to be feeling safe and secure, right? Whether that's financially, relationally, whatever that looks like. If we do not feel safe and secure, it is really hard for us to feel creative and inspired, right? Yes. And so if you find yourself in a situation or a job or a career or a relationship where you are not happy, and when you really get honest with yourself, you are not happy, how can you figure out how to do just enough of whatever it is that you're currently doing to feel that safety and security that unlocks your time and your creativity? If we're really looking at time as our currency, then it's really important that we figure out ways to up level our time and how we're spending it. So for example, I was a wedding photographer for 8 years. And I shot my last wedding only 3 years ago. I had $1 million business, and yet I was still hauling my camera gear to the weddings because that was something that gave me the safety and security to propel me to the next place. And so I think that a lot of times we're so quick to like abandon everything and be like, okay, when I'm honest, my life is not what I thought it would. Let's just start all over again. And it's like, you have gifts and talents and skills and opportunities right now that can help you start moving towards today. And so much in my career, there's this through line that I don't think I understand. And Megan just said, what if you don't know where you want to go? Megan, hear me with this. There have been so many times in my life where I don't know exactly where I want to head, right? Like I found myself in this corporate windowless office and I didn't say, I think I'm going to become a wedding photographer, but I recognized here is what I no longer want. I don't want somebody planning out my life for me. I want to take control. How can I start to do that? And sometimes knowing what you don't want is just as important as knowing what you do want. And I think that a lot of times it gets really convoluted in this world that's like, follow your dreams and pursue your passions, because honestly, so many of us are in survival mode. We don't even know what we're passionate about, right? Like who has time for passions? I remember during the pandemic, my husband and I, we were driving to our house and we were talking about a friend of ours and we were like, I wonder what she does outside of work and motherhood. And I like looked at him and I was like, what do I do outside of work and motherhood? Like, what are my hobbies? What are my passions? And so for me, I've had to sometimes pay more attention to like, I no longer want this. So I need to figure out how to move in a direction away from that. When I finally stopped photographing weddings, it wasn't necessarily, I know exactly what's next, but I said, I want to stop trading time for money. How do I start moving in that direction? When I left my corporate job, I want to move out of a position where somebody's planning my life for me. How do I take more control of that? And so it's really important for us, if we're not feeling super passionate, super creative, super inspired, maybe we need to pay attention to this is not working for me. So what is the flip side of that?
I want to come back to one thing that you said previously, which I think is really profound about having to know your starting position before you can navigate anywhere into the future. Could you maybe, because I feel I'd like you to talk a little bit more about that, and maybe to formulate a question around this is, why is it this important? We live in a society which is a little obsessed with the goal rather than the starting point, to the point where we believe in faking it till you make it, and completely ignoring the starting point.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So there's this line in the book that says, maybe you haven't gotten to where you want to go because you're looking at someone else's roadmap. And it's this interesting thing, because here's what I want to recognize. Like I teach strategies and systems and things like that. There is a beautiful place for us to learn from people who have gone before us, right? But what happens is that we have not been confident enough in ourselves and in our inner knowing to take what serves us and leave the rest behind. And so there are certain instances where like I'll see people who are so hungry for results that they are writing down every single word that somebody says. And they, in their mind, they're like, if this worked for them, it's going to work for me. And I think that life is a mix of the woo and the work, right? It's having those visions and having these manifestations, but then also being willing to do the work that it takes to have those dreams fulfilled. And I live in that, because what's happened and what I think continues to happen in this very polarizing world, especially for ambitious women, is that we feel like we have to choose. There are the manifestors, and then there are the people who hustle harder. They say, you know, wake up earlier, always say yes, never turn down an opportunity. And we have to find that sweet spot in the middle where we believe that, yes, I can have this vision of what I want for my life, but I'm also going to do a little bit of that work today and tomorrow and the following day to get there. And so when I think about like someone else's roadmap, I invite you to learn from people who have gone before you. You can turn decades into days when you adopt what people have taught you, but you also have to continually check in with yourself and say, does this resonate? Does this fit me? Like, is this the actual goal for me? Do I want this? And I think that we've lost touch with our ability to check in with ourselves, even in the learning process. And that's where sometimes we achieve the goal and we get there and we're like, this isn't what I thought it was. Maybe this wasn't right. And so I think it's really important for us to have that level of discernment. And what's required to be able to discern is that ability to check in on ourselves.
Sorry, I had a little bit of a coughing.
Oh, you're good.
I really loved that analogy of maybe you are following another person's roadmap, and I think this is really profound. Meanwhile, we have Theresa joining us.
Yay!
I'm going to switch off my microphone to pass it over to you, Theresa, but I'm still here. I'll just use the chance to cough.
Hi, yes, it's Theresa, but thank you so much for having me. I've been following you for a while and you're very inspiring with your like top 5 things of focus. So thank you. That's amazing.
Thank you.
My question is, what are your habits for self-care? And thank you for that whole thing about checking in, because like, I feel like as I'm hustling and trying to be more busy and not saying, you know, I'm doing a show this weekend, which is 3 days away from my 3 children, like right before October Halloween, like the mom guilt is strong over here. What are your self-care habits?
Yeah, I love that. So I want to use for while you are away. And I usually pick like a word of the year or something. And when I first became a mom, I had this necklace and it said, "Be here now." And I think that for a lot of us working moms, it's like when we're working, we're thinking about our kids. And when we're with our kids, we're thinking about working. And it's like, we're never all in, right? Like we always just feel like we're being pulled in so many different directions, which is why we are stretched thin. And so my challenge for you is that while you are at your event, you just be all in there. And that way you can fill up your cup again. And so that when you go back home, it's like, it's good to miss our kids, right? Like I tell my daughter that whenever she goes to school, she's like, "I'm going to miss you." And I was like, I touch my heart and I think of you and you can do the same. And I was like, it's good to miss each other because it makes it so much sweeter. And so I just want to encourage you there to just try to be as present as you can. For me, I've been on this massive health journey, especially after having my second child and realizing the amount of energy it takes to be a hands-on good mom while also having a career. And I have been on this journey of really learning what does that look like to fill my cup, so to speak. And one of the biggest things that has been really, really helpful for me, and it takes about 30 minutes a day, is when my husband does school drop off, I used to crack open my laptop and get straight to work, right? Like that was my most productive hour. Like I got to dive on in and like hit the ground running. And instead, what I've started to do is use that 30-minute window as that me time, whether it's journaling or meditating. I do some funky things like red light therapy and like lay on a PEMF mat and all these weird like biohacking things as well. But I use that 30 minutes of time and I habit stack it. So it's not like it's this passive time where my morning routine takes 8 hours and then I'm joyfully getting into work. It's still pretty quick. But I've recognized that like, if I want energy, I have to fuel my life for that energy. And that starts at the very beginning of my day. And I used to be someone who scoffed at the idea of a morning routine because I'm still in that season of life where I'm like, I am going to sleep until that baby cries in the monitor, right? Like I need every drop of sleep. I'm not going to wake up at 5 a.m. I'm not going to do anything crazy. But really, like if you can take just a little bit of time to center yourself and focus yourself, I think that you will move through your day with a lot more presence. And I think honestly, presence gives you that area of fulfillment that I think a lot of us are lacking and pulled in so many different directions. And so I've tried to really prioritize presence. And that way I don't feel like at the end of the day, I'm not asking myself like, what did I actually achieve today? Or what did I accomplish?
That's amazing. So basically you're saying to be present and grounded and take 30 minutes to yourself. You can shuffle it up. You can do meditation. You can do PEMF mats. And by the way, that's amazing that you're doing that.
Yes. Journaling. I mean, like all of those things. And what I found too is like before those were just things that I would check off on my like to-do list of like, I am a high performer. I am an achiever. But when you actually find joy in doing those things and recognize that those are the things that are actually going to fuel the rest of your success for the day, I think that it almost helps that achiever brain be like, this isn't selfish. This is actually like helping me and be my best self, which I think really had to be like a mindset shift for me because I'm like a goer. And it sounds like you are too.
Yeah, I think I could handle half an hour and I'm excited to put that in my CEO calendar.
I love that. I love that. Oh, good luck at your event. It was so nice to chat with you.
Yeah, just a heads up, like if you're exhausted, there's a thing called adrenal support you can take as a supplement, FYI. But thank you so much, Jenna.
You're amazing. So great to connect.
Thank you, Theresa, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, having you here. Bianca, I'm sorry to say it so early. Theresa is still here, but if anybody else wants to join us, please welcome
I see a
them.
question from Doug. Do you want me to answer that?
I actually have a question I want to ask you.
Go ahead.
In the tail end of what Theresa was talking about. And by the way, I discovered one more thing which we have in common. I also have a word for the year.
Yes. What is your word this year?
This year it's greatness. But I've had all sorts of, I've had letting go, and I've had courage, and I've done it for years now. So this year it's the year of greatness. So the question that I want to ask, you keep saying that time is a currency which is very valuable, and this is one thing that you can never get back. And the one lesson I learned when I moved to Asia, reluctantly, I realized that if I let someone else do the work, that buys me time. Of course, in Asia, you get to buy those kind of services. But I do also know that we have super achieving, ambitious, perfectionist, good girls have very hard times asking for help. I have good girls like that in my team who are amazing, amazing team members, amazing people to run your business. But once in a while, you have to shake them up and say, tell me when you need help.
Yes.
Can you give some tips about how to learn to actually involve other people into your life?
Yes. Oh my gosh. So there is an entire chapter inside of my book, and it's called Pride's Utter Chokehold, because I think a lot of times it's our pride that tells us like asking for help is weak. And I want to flip this on its head for so many people that feel that way, because there are so many people in your life who feel fulfilled when they are asked for help. So you asking somebody to help you allows them to step into their greatest role. And there's this chapter in my book where I tell this story about how when I hired my first employee, it was so reluctantly. This woman had literally reached out to me multiple times and said like, hi, I'm here. I can help you. I can assist you. I know exactly what you do. I'm here to help you. And I basically said, I'm good. Like, no, thanks. No, thanks. Until finally life knocked me on my knees with our second loss. And I was like, I want to curl up in the fetal position. I need help. And the words I need help are a full sentence. You don't need to explain why you got there or what got you there or what it is. But something that I think is so powerful is when we ask people in our lives for help, we might also be asking them to step into their power in doing the helping. It feels good to help somebody, right? Like we come alive when we feel useful or needed or necessary. And so it's really interesting to me that we still come at it from this place of like asking for help is weakness, because asking for help is giving someone else their strength. And it's really important to me too. And I think it's important to note that there are different times in your life where there are different levels of importance. So there are seasons where money isn't, and I will trade my time to earn money, right? When you're starting a business, when you're writing the book, like you have to be willing to spend time in order to earn money. But there's becomes this season of your life where the threshold is turned off and it's out of balance. And all of a sudden you're like, I am willing to spend money to get time back, right? I am willing to hire someone to deliver the groceries. I'm willing to order delivery and pay the delivery fee for something so that I don't have to run to the post office. I am willing to hire the virtual assistant to respond to the emails. And so what you really have to do first is just get honest. What season of life are you in? Is it the season of life where you do have to trade your time in order to earn the dollars? Or have you hit this place where you now have a little bit extra money that you can spend to get your time back? Like it constantly goes back and forth like this. And I think, again, if we're checking in with ourselves, we can be honest, like, hey, this season requires a little bit more time. And this season, I want to spend money to have somebody mow my grass so that I can spend Saturday on the floor with my kids. And so it's just kind of this balance, and it keeps moving as you move through life, or as you try new things, or as you pursue new ambitions. But asking for help is fighting in their power. And so it's not something that we need to look at as a weakness. And I think that's something that we get wrong.
Well, one more aspect why people don't ask for help, at least professionally, is because they are in the season of earning money. Do you have any suggestions for people who can't afford buying help?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you have to figure out is, where can you create systems in your life? If you find yourself doing one task over and over and over again, there is likely a way to systemize or automate or simplify the process. And so again, it comes with this price of like, how do I just free up more time? That should be the ultimate goal on everyone's plate, is how do I get time back? Because again, time is our life. So how we spend our days is how we spend our lives. And so, from making email templates to figuring out faster ways to get things done. The problem here is that a lot of achievers try to save time in order to spend more time working, instead of saving time to spend more time living their life. There's this story in my book that talks about these two people that are in New York City. One is a monk and one is a tour guide. And stick with me, this is important. So the tour guide says, hey, if we take this subway, we can save ourselves 10 minutes. And so they go down into the depths of New York City, they jump on the grimy subway, they come back up, see the sunshine again. And the monk goes and sits his butt down on a park bench. And the tour guide goes, what are you doing? And the monk says, I am enjoying the 10 minutes we just saved ourselves. And I think that this is such a powerful story, because when we think about in those seasons of hustle and grind, we often don't think about, how can I work smarter so that I can live more? We think about, how can I work smarter so that I can work harder? And so again, when we treat time as our currency, it is not learning all these tools and tactics and strategies to save time so that we can spend it working more. It's, how can I save time to get back my life? And when you get back your life, your creativity expands, dreams expand, what you want to do with your life expands, your understanding of your calling expands. And so many of us are busy walking through life, having this busyness be this badge of honor. But in reality, like, the most that I am successful is when I am free to ask myself, what do I want to do? What does my best self look like today? How do I show up as my most successful self? And if I don't have time to ask myself that question, then I sure as heck don't have time to live out that calling.
Mm-hmm. I have a follow-up question, but I want to ask Bianca if anybody wants to join us in the conversation, because we have still a little time left. So the follow-up question that I want to ask is, as I had it in my head and I forgot it. Well, maybe it will come back. Meanwhile, we have
Lily.
Lily, yes, Lily joining
Lily.
us. And the question might come back, or if it doesn't, maybe we'll have to meet again. It will come later. There we go. Hey, Lily.
Hi. Good morning, Christina. Hi, Jenna. I just want to tell you, I love you, and I follow you on Instagram. And I own my own business now. I'm 52. I own my own business. Never done that. I'm W-2'd before, but I am so scatterbrained, and I have to write notes and everything. I thought I didn't buy your book yet, that I found your book on my bookshelf, with nails.
I love you, Lily.
I'm scatterbrained, and I feel like I love that you say about balance, because I can never find it. I asked Jesus for it. I can't find balance in my life, but how do you, because I'm 52 now, like I said, own my own business. How do you know if that's your calling? Because my kids are grown, they're having grandbabies now. I have a lot of free time. My husband's a boss man in LA. So I have a lot of free time, but I don't know in my soul if it's what I'm doing is what I should be doing, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. I love this question. First off, I am also scatterbrained and all of the things. I just got diagnosed with ADHD. I swear, so many successful, brilliant women have ADHD and go through their lives undiagnosed and feel like, are you the person who's like constantly losing your keys? Or, like, that's me, like that is me. And I now have a reason that I can blame on that. So when my husband's like, get your crap together, I'm like, I have ADHD, babe.
Ladies, thank you for having this conversation, because I don't feel so bad for forgetting my question. But go on.
My gosh. Yes, this is my life. I was like, thank you for this diagnosis, just in the sense of now I can figure out how to work with my neurodivergent brain in a way that actually works for me. But one thing I want to say, Lily, and I think that there is this deep desire for us to have our work become our legacy, right? Like, we want our lives to matter. We want our work to make a difference. And as you said, like your first generation entrepreneur, this is your first time, your first business. I want for people to know, like, if becoming an entrepreneur is this deep desire on your heart, you do not have to start with what you believe your life's calling will be. I think a lot of times it's incredible to learn business and to get our footing in places that are easy for us to make a difference and show up and make an income while we figure out, what is my calling? What do I want to do? And a lot of times the path is kind of illuminated on the way. And something that I've struggled with, Lily, because I think Instagram strategy, is Instagram strategy my legacy? Do I want my children someday to say, my mom was the Instagram expert? No. You know why I love Instagram and strategy is because I can teach people ways to live their legacy online and to write their own stories and make a difference through that. And so a lot of times when we're doing the work, it's like, does this work really matter? Like, is this it? Like, does it make a difference? But if we actually ask ourselves, what am I teaching, or how am I making a difference, or how is this impacting someone's lives? We either unlock the fact that while the work itself might not be the legacy comes in what we help other people unlock or do or achieve, or we do our work and we earn our income so that we are able to do our dreams and our legacies without ever having to monetize it. So there are things in my life where it's like my business funds the ability to talk about my true passions, which are, body positivity and miscarriage and handling things like that. I will never monetize those facets of my life. But because I have a successful business, I am afforded the time and the platform to talk about the things that really matter to me. And so I think it's interesting, instead of feeling this deep desire of like, my work has to be the thing and the thing has to matter and the mattering has to make the impact, maybe what you're doing right now is either unlocking the next steps that will be that legacy work, or maybe what you're doing is going to fund you the ability to live out your legacy without ever having to monetize it. And I think those are two different ways that you can look at it. And it's something that I wrestle with as well. And I think about, like, what do I want my children to say about me? Or like, what about my work makes a difference? And sometimes it's hard to connect those dots. But if you keep asking yourself why do I care about Instagram strategy? Because I want people to recognize that their posts are their journals for the world to see. Why does that matter? Because I don't think that people are realizing that their legacies are being lived out today. Why does that matter? Because when we're gone, our digital blueprint and footprint are what people might look at as what our lives are. And when I keep asking myself, why, it actually really gets to the heart of like, here's why this work does matter, even when it feels silly or trivial or frivolous. Does that answer your question at all, Lily?
I love that. I love that you said that. Why does it matter? Because I feel like I asked myself the wrong questions, but I wrote everything down. And I love also the point, I know other people want to talk to you. I love how you say knowing what you don't want.
Yes.
Journaling what I don't want. I'm calling clients that are mean to me. I'm doing all these things, but I love that you said that, because I my list is so long of the things that I do want. And then I'm like, how am I going to make that happen, Lil?
Yes.
So I love that you wrote that. I found 5 things that I don't want, that I just reverse psychology on that. I love you.
I love it.
Give me a sign. I have to finish your book.
Yes. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful we connected. Oh,
me too. Thank you. Love you, Jenna. I love you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily, for joining us. I think we've had such wonderful guests today. It's a shame I won't have time to invite anyone else. And Lily, thank you for being so conscious actually of time, because it's we sometimes lose track of time. In fact, before I go into my last 2 questions, I want to ask a question of my audience. Would you guys want to have Jenna back? Because I feel there are so many topics we didn't talk about.
Yes, we could go in a million directions.
Your answers. We have a lot in common in the experiences, but your take is so different that I actually really enjoy looking. It like gives a different dimension to the same questions I've been asking in my life. So thank you for that. But the question I want to ask also a little bit in the wake of previous conversations is, you mentioned that the theme for your year is to be present. And we talked about time and asking for help and how we feel that it's a sign of weakness. But I've also witnessed a lot of very ambitious people in their natural habitat. And what I've noticed about them is that when they do get a moment of free time, they feel antsy and they feel that it's a wasted time. They almost feel ashamed for taking that time. So do you have a solution for actually being present in those moments that you carve out for yourself in your busy schedule?
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. I used to believe that I was incapable of rest. Like I literally told myself that lie of like, I just operate at a higher level. My brain doesn't work in the way that allows me to rest. And it was really rooted in this like fear of like, if I slow down, if momentum goes away, will all of this disappear?
Yeah.
And I think that for a lot of, especially all genders, a lot of us feel like this lie of like momentum, or that like it was a fluke, like any success that we found in our lives, it was a mistake. And if I stop, everything will stop, right? The opportunities, the invitations, the ideas. And what's really fascinating is that like when we rest more, I think that more is revealed to us. And I have had to learn that like rest is productive. Like for people that want to always be going and moving and doing and all of these things, like if we don't rest, we can't do those things and do them to the ability that we need. And part of what I've dreamed of for myself this year is that like, I want to be vibrant. Like I want to have the energy that I walk into the room and people are like, oh, the room is different. Like, what is she doing? What is she taking? What is she drinking? What's in her coffee? Like that is how I want to move through this year. And that can only be true if I am resting. Like I cannot have this level of energy and show up in this way if I don't rest. And so for me, and something that I want to encourage, I feel like, Christina, this is 100% you, is that rest takes just as much work for me as being productive does. I have to keep coming home to the fact that it is okay to rest and I need to rest, and resting is good. And this is what my body needs right now. And this is what my soul needs right now. And what's fascinating is, have you ever gone like on a vacation and you finally sink into vacation mode the day before you're set to fly home, right? Like you're like, if only I had like one more week, because now I know how to vacation. Now I know how to like sleep, and now I know how to put on that hotel robe. And so it's fascinating because it's like, we are capable of rest, but we don't give ourselves enough time to learn how to do it. And it's just like the way that you would train to run a 5K. You almost have to go, you know, they have all those apps like from couch to 5K. We are running the 5K daily. We need to learn how to get back to the couch. So what does resting for 5 minutes look like today? What does resting for 10 minutes tomorrow look like today? How do we start to invite that into our lives and get comfortable at being uncomfortable in being still? And it's like, if we can train ourselves to rest, rest comes easily to us. Like I now crave rest, whereas before I was like, I can never take a day off. I had a Facebook memory pop up the other day, and it was like, I am taking my first day off in 7 months. Wish me luck. I don't even know how to do this. And I like looked at like my younger self and I was like, you poor thing. You poor thing. But I literally believed that like I was incapable of it. And so it's like, how do we train ourselves and remember how to rest? Because guess what? As children, we knew how to rest. We knew how to be still. Yeah. Again, society and the conditioning and this deep desire that we are always productive, and in our productivity, we are worthy, and our worth is found in our output. That is all the lies that keep us from sitting our butts on the couches and just being. It's like, we are human beings, not human doings. And so it's really, really interesting that the more that you invite yourself to just be, the more that you check in with yourself, the more that you get quiet with yourself, the easier it is. I brought up that story earlier about how I used to hate Shavasana at the end of yoga. Now I'm like, can I go do a 60-minute Shavasana? Like that could be my practice for today, because now I crave that. I want that. I don't feel uncomfortable by that, but I had to work up that tolerance in just being still, which is a part of our modern day society.
I really love that all your answers are full of gems. I particularly enjoyed you saying, I thought I was I was functioning on different.
Golly, I know, right? It's like, I just thought the world of my capabilities. Like, I can really rest.
It's such a wonderful thing, because the lies we like to tell ourselves are just amazing. And of course, the phrase "rest is productive" is definitely like
Yes.
it's worth a lot. So unfortunately, we have to finish.
Yeah.
So I want to ask my traditional questions. You guys know, I want you to leave a heart for my wonderful guest in the chat, and if you're watching it in recording, then under the video. I think because I don't see very well, so I don't know what you answered, but I think I want to bring you back, so if you don't mind, because there are still topics to talk about, and I really love your energy. But I do have a last question. If people want to know you more, we've already established that you have a best-selling book. And you have a very active Instagram with, I think, million followers or something like that. Are there any other ways to actually go deeper with you into what you teach?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, my book is along the vein of all these conversations. All of these questions are in the book. And I want to also let you know, there's so many self-help books out there, right? This is not a book of how to be more like me. It is a book of how to come home to you. And I just want to like preface that. So the book is called How Are You Really? You can find it anywhere books are sold. I narrate the audiobook. So if you like to listen, I do the Audible, which is really fun as well. My podcast is the Goal Digger Podcast. And I share a lot about this and how to work smarter so that you can live more and kind of unlock that life. And then I also teach courses. So I talked about Instagram and all of those places, and you can find all of those at jennakutcher.com. And I love my courses just because they help you get back to your life. Like that is like, when I say, what is my legacy? It is having people wake up to their lives. And so my programs are rooted in marketing strategies, but they really unlock your ability to systemize some of the things that are stressing you out and have clarity on how those things make a difference in your life or your dreams or your business or the impact, so that you can get back to your life. So those are all the places. I would love to connect with you on Instagram, of course, at Jenna Kutcher. And I'm just so grateful for this conversation and this amazing chat and your amazing community. It was really, really lovely to be with you guys.
Thank you so much, Jenna, for being with us. And thank you, Bianca, for having our backs. And it was a wonderful conversation. And I hope we'll repeat it on a slightly different angle.
Yes, that would be awesome.
There are still a lot of things I wanted to ask. Thank you guys for joining me as usual. And I'm going to see you not in a week, because next week I'm on a holiday with the kids, but a week after that.
Perfect. Bye, everybody. Thank you.